No one wants to do the old shit that just works. Everybody wants something new, and oh, there's this new thing I saw, and it's like, actually, man, like the basics still typically get you 80% of the value. So that's why I'm still stuck right now on like, how do I manage my negatives? How do I structure my accounts to make sure I save my clients a boatload of money on keywords that weren't going to make them any money? I just started knocking on doors of companies in 1999 that I thought were doing really cool things. I'm kind of a little bit nerdy, so I like working on the internet. And I said, hey, if I can get a job working on the internet, I get to do something I like to do, it's kind of cool. For e-commerce people, the number one thing that's frustrating me right now is this concept of uploading a feed and not specifically targeting the keywords you want to target. Like that is like, I just found that out like 2 months ago, and my mind was like, wait a second, so Google's matching you on all these words, and the only thing you can do is negate what shows up as a bad match? And I found that out, and then I went, and I was talking to one of my clients, they said they ran out of negatives and had to completely restructure their accounts, and I went, wait, and you can run out of negatives? So the only way I can choose what words I show up for is to negate the ones that Google determines are right for me, and then you're gonna limit the number of negatives I can have? It just sounds horrible. It's funny, my focus has been less on growth. It's been more on saving money. So everything that I've been talking about is how do I join these various data sets to understand where I'm wasting money in my account, so then you can invest in your growth ideas. The worst thing is when you have an idea and a hypothesis and you can't get the budget for it. If I can find ways to save you money based on things that were never going to convert for you anyway, then you now have the money to test more of your growth ideas, right? So that's the way that I typically look at my role as it relates to helping people to grow in e-commerce. I have had a lot of fun in looking at things like the URL mismatching that I was talking about earlier today, where like a keyword has an intent, but your URLs are telling me that like you don't have that on the page. So why won't we fix that, right? And we did it for one client, literally just started putting women's in more of the titles. Rankings went up, 20% more clicks on those words, more conversions, and all we were doing was just making sure that we targeted women's keywords to women's pages. So simple, but you'd be surprised at scale in e-commerce. Those little things are happening all over 2 million plus keywords.
I totally get it, and I'm seeing this, let's say, the lack of making the fundamentals work for you.
The most interesting thing I think about, and this is true with growth, like growth strategies, is no one wants to do the old shit that just works. Everybody wants something new, and oh, there's this new thing I saw, and it's like, actually, man, like the basics still typically get you 80% of the value. So that's why I'm still stuck right now on like, how do I manage my negatives? How do I structure my accounts to make sure I save my clients a boatload of money on keywords that weren't going to make them any money? It's around bias. All marketers have bias. And if we don't look at the work that we do through a lens of how do I minimize my bias, then I'm going to be bidding on words and creating strategies based off of flawed logic. One of the best examples I can give you that's just such a great example is one of our clients in the United States, the word is a deck. So you make a deck outside, it's like a patio. Our client sells decking equipment. People want to do it themselves, so they figure out and do it themselves, DIY, planning, deck planning. So I type in the word deck plan. Makes sense. I should target the word deck plan for my client. They help people plan out decks. People that go on cruises also search for the word deck plan because they're looking for the different deck plans of the cruise ship. So now the same word has two different meanings. If I was into cruises, I would have known that. But because I don't take cruises, I would have never known it, which meant I'm more likely to waste my client's money until I eventually find that out. So I'm really big on the fact that we as marketers bias our initial set of keywords, and how can we start to minimize that bias by using bigger and bigger data sets.
Yeah, and saving a lot of money for
Save a bunch of money. Google doesn't need any more of our money. They got enough. I think it's all them. It's sad to say, but the minute anything gets big enough, so I'll go on a little bit of a tangent. All the companies that have a chance to give Google or Facebook or Twitter, real competition, they're all funded by venture capital. The goal of venture capital is, how do I sell this business to get a huge return? Multiple X. So the problem becomes, once any of them get big enough, their investors are going to be like, you're selling to the highest bidder. Well, who has the most money? Google and Facebook, Apple. So really, you're kind of living in a world where if you could compete with them, they have enough money just to buy you so you don't compete with them.
Yeah.
And until we start to break them up or something, I don't think there's going to be I think they're just going to continue to dominate.
Yeah, but looking at the car industry, for instance, if you are highly innovative like Tesla is, they could outcompete, let's say, General Motors or other well-established companies.
Yeah, but General Motors is dumb.
Google will be dumb.
Google's not that dumb.
In the future.
Google's missed the chance to buy Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
Right? They know that pain. So now it's not worth it for them to ever let another social platform or anything go by them, because they're now like, we missed out on that already. So I feel like Google, Facebook buys Instagram for billions of dollars. It's a 16-person company. Why? Because they're afraid that it's going to hurt their cash cow, and they have so much money that their bid can be the highest. And the venture capitalists want the maximum return on their investment. So as long as we live in that world where everything is, give me my maximum return on investment, I think that they're always going to have to sell to the companies with the most money. Google, Facebook, Apple. You know what? Here it is. Get the fuck off of Facebook. Like, I think we owe it. Like, it's easy to say, oh, well, Facebook's bad. All right, well, are you gonna get off of Facebook? Well, no. All right, well then, when is it ever going to? Because Facebook will start acting differently when people stop using Facebook.
That's true.
Google will start acting differently when people stop using Google. So I got rid of Chrome. I now use Brave as my browser. I have made DuckDuckGo my default search engine, but because DuckDuckGo protects your privacy so much, it actually creates a problem. Because if I search for pizza on my phone, I want something local. DuckDuckGo's like, we don't take your location. I'm like, well, then you're actually useless to me.
Yeah.
So Google's made me so used to being able to type things in, and they use other things they know about me to give me a better experience, that actually I have a hard time sometimes using DuckDuckGo.
Yeah,
but you can use DuckDuckGo, you can use Bing. I think it has to start with us individually, saying I'm going to change my behaviors and the tools that I use, or otherwise we're just going to keep giving them more money.
Yeah,
they're going to react the minute their monthly users start dropping, monthly searches start dropping, but they're not. So we're not changing our behavior, so they're not changing theirs. I think it's a lot of hype right now.
Yeah.
I think most people cannot describe for you how the AI or the machine learning is actually helping them to make better marketing decisions today. So when somebody says, oh, machine learning, AI, you're like, great. How are you using it in your organization today? Give me a story on how you're using AI or machine learning that happened in the last 2 weeks that helped you to do something that you would otherwise would not have been able to do. Blank.
They've used ways, maybe.
Most people are talking about it, but don't truly understand if it's helping or not. I can't tell you how many pitches I see where it's like, oh, we're going to use machine learning to do this, and it's like, that's great. But what's this going to do for me? Well, it's machine learning, and it's just like, So for me, I'm kind of like, you need to understand machine learning and AI enough to understand where it adds value and where it's just hype and spin.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because if your data's not clean, you can't run machine learning on it for the most part. And we can get into unstructured data, but we're not going to get into that today. But for the most part, if your data's not clean, you can't run machine learning on it. Like, you have to have it structured and scheme it out so the machines can learn kind of what's happening. And most people don't have their data structured, so you can't really do a lot of AI and machine learning until you get your data structured.
That makes sense.
Doesn't surprise me. It's hard. See, here's an example. We've been told that, yeah, you can bring all this data together and you can see your customer lifetime value and you can see their repeat buys and all this. And it's like, okay. And then when you actually go to do it, it's really freaking difficult. People change browsers, cookies break, we're in the EU, there's a lot of things going on. Apple comes out and is like, hey, we're not letting you put any of these cookies. So I think it's really hard. I think it's really hard to do, but yet I think a lot of folks will say, oh, I know how many of my buyers are repeat, and you're like, okay, let me go buy from your site on my desktop, then I'm gonna do it on my phone, then I'm gonna do it in Brave, then I'm gonna do it incognito, then I'm gonna do it like this. I am the same customer buying 5 different times. You can't fingerprint my browser, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. How are you going to determine that that's me?
On email.
You can't, email, you need the email address to be able to do that.
To be logged in.
But then, right, so now you have the email, but then it's like, yeah, I buy some stuff on my Gmail account, my work stuff I might buy through work. Like, it's just, there's a consistency of problems in the data. I think it's very hard to fix.
Yeah, and maybe that's why they are avoiding it.
I think that's why they're avoiding it, because you look under it and it sounds great. And then when you go to look under it, you're like, holy shit, that's gonna be really hard.
Yeah.
Put it back down, I got goals to hit this month.
Still, if you, let's say, promote yourself, like, if you log in, you'll have your, let's say, loyalty points or whatever, like you are doing on Prime.
Yep.
Why they are not doing it, that's a different story, because on Prime,
email
you get your points.
is huge.
Yeah.
It's the one thing I love about e-com, is email's huge, because it's the unique identifier.
Yeah.
It takes all those funnel activities and brings them into one place. The problem is when you come to go back up into those funnels, doing the attribution,
Tough.
Really tough. All right.
All right.
Cool.
So, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the time.